History of the United States note. Now the larger denominations. $20 from the Rosecrans-Nemeker era, which we see here, onward. Although as it turns out, the larger denominations, there are no notes from the Rosecrans-Nemeker, though they do seem to start shortly thereafter in the Tillman-Morgan era, looking more or less as Rosecrans-Nemeker's would have looked like. So this is the actual Rosecrans. Kind of tired. You can see the red is faded of the seal, but it's still got its scallops there if you look carefully. The serial numbers are blue. And this is the $20 for legal tender for $20. It's the United States note. Series of 1880. And so there we have it. Now on the flip side, we have this note is a legal tender at its face value for all debts public and private except duties on imports and interest on the public debt, and then about counterfeiting. Okay. Printed at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Washington, D.C. Look at that. U.S., United States of America. Series of 1880. So these continued 1880 clear to the grim, bitter end. So there's our $20. And it turns out that it was with the signatures of Teehee and Burke as you see the appearance of a change. No change of series, apparently. But the serial numbers turn red. And that's really about it. You can see they're very, very similar. So, you can see it looks very much the same. Teehee and Burke. And again, this all has the same thing. Series of 1880. $20. XX20. So that was the end, almost. We move actually one more signature combination to Elliott and White. And this is where the denomination effectively ends. Still series of 1880. Still active March 3rd, 1863. Still United States note. Still legal tender for $20. The United States will pay to bear $20. So there that is. And the usual red scalloped. And series of 1880. So no further changes. And there we have that. Now, supposedly some small size $20 might have been printed. I haven't even heard that those have been displayed anywhere. So that has the status of, I would have to say, a rumor more than anything else. Okay, now for $50, we really only have one appearance that begins, well, there's no Nebeker, Rosecrans Nebekers at this denomination, but they might start at Tillman Morgan or beyond. And they go through Lyons and Roberts, but not much beyond that. And this is simply their look. Act of March 3, 1863. Engraved and printed at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. Yeah, I guess so. Benjamin Franklin. Good that it said so. I wouldn't have known who he was otherwise. And this sort of Columbia drawing. Very unusual, but it's there. And again, the United States United will pay to bear $50. This note is a legal tender for $50. $50, series of 1880. Okay, so there they are. And the flip side, this is kind of a cool looking note. The counterfeiting is on this side. This note is legal tender stuff. Okay, on the public debt. Is in this oddly shaped thing in the middle. Pretty cool. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, Washington, D.C. Series of 1880 here. So that is the back side of the $50. And that's really it. It makes it as far as, I think, Vernon and McClung. But they don't change. Now the $100 has the most interesting. Here's $100. Lyons and Roberts. So we're just passing into the 20th century thereabout. There's also a Vernon and McClung. It's reportedly printed, but no copies are known in any collection or museum. So they may have all been destroyed. So this is a very large denominator. Look at this note is a legal tender for $100. United States note. And sales action of 1863. Series of 1880. The United States will pay to bearer $100. Washington, D.C. Pretty cool. And we all recognize Abraham Lincoln. Okay. Again, series of 1880. This note is legal tender, its face value, etc. on the public debt, and then counterfeiting stuff. Okay. $100. $100. United States of America. Oh, that's interesting. They have a digit underneath and then $100, and they did the same over here. All right, United States of America, printed at the Bureau of Printing. Okay. So this is the back of this. So these pretty much stopped around the turn of the century. The denominations kind of got smaller after their peak around the 1878 series with maybe a couple of signature combinations and or serial appearances. Very brief period of going as far as 5,000 and 10,000, but no. However, the 100 has a unique little coda to this whole thing, and that comes at, in fact, the absolute end of the whole history of the United States note, because when they're trying to pull them out of circulation, they still had to maintain the amount, and the easy way to do that was to print these big bills, United States note, $100. See all the changes. This note is a legal tender for all debts, public and private. 100. Washington, D.C. Didn't even have to say dollars, except on here. But there it is. And the back has the usual back that $100 bills had for much of the 20th century once you got to the small size. And so all this will pay to the bearer stuff is already gone. Everything's been enlarged a little bit because these are printed dry. And the only thing that happens beyond this, which is series 1966 with Catherine O'Hay Granahan and Henry H. Fowler, is another change of signatures because we moved from the Kennedy/Johnson administrations to that of the Nixon administration, and so we get all new appointees. So Dorothy Andrews Elston and David M. Kennedy, Secretary of the Treasury. And so the usual signatures, 1966A, and it's all the same. And this represents the last of anything being printed as paper money by our Bureau of Printing and Engraving that is not a Federal Reserve note. These and these others were available up until the end of about January of 1971, so there was some way that collectors could procure these. That's the only reason any of these have escaped. After that, nothing else escapes. Everything else was kept in a vault until they destroyed it in, I think, 1994. So these two, is kind of funny that this same denomination missed out on a lot of United States note history and going for how they looked at the turn of the century, how they looked at the end of their existence and the end of the existence of all United States notes as anything to be currently in print. So, for completeness, I suppose it might do to point out that the denominations of 500 and 1,000 also exist. I can only get to these through this book here, Paper Money. I'll have to just kind of borrow the pictures, but these are from, this is Lyons and Roberts, That's its back. And the 1,000. This is also lions and robbers, and that's its back. So, as I said, the bigger the 1,000, the 5,000 and 10,000 don't exist. So that is our final United States notes. Thank you for following on this notes series. Bye.